You know the deal, Trevor. Every week, musical intro. You provide us musical accompaniment to start off the show. Really exciting, bring a lot of fresh energy into the show. You provide a lot of exciting energy to start off the show. I'm really excited every week to see what you're going to bring to the table. It's always fun. It's always exciting. What do you have planned for this week's musical intro, buddy?
Alright, so I've had a lot of different songs stuck in my head, but there's one that's been stuck in my head for forever. It's kind of politically charged here. I hope that you like it, alright?
Word on the street say yeehaw. Word on the street you're in a frat. Word on the street your favorite song is Uptown Girl by Billy Joel. Word on the street you're from Maloney. Word on the street. He was a little Uzi Vert.
I would have to say it's actually better than the original version.
I'm glad you liked it.
Oh my god, people have already stopped watching. You scared them away. How dare you? Welcome everyone to the Anthony and Todd Show. I'm your host, Vincent, aka Vinny Vincent, aka Deluxe Meat Lovers Pizza. And I'm joined today by my ever-attentive co-host, my best friend, my pal, my amigo, Trevor, aka Giving Me a Heart Attack. You gave me a heart attack.
Oh, man.
And then I died. Again, welcome to the Anthony and Todd Show. We got a great show planned for you today. A really stacked, full, charged episode of the Anthony and Todd Show. I'm really excited. I was really interested to go into all of these projects, and I really wasn't let down that much. And I'm really happy that we're discussing these projects today. First of all, we're going to start off with the new JPEGMAFIA album, Veteran, followed by the new Porches album, The House. We're going to follow that up with the new Deluxe record, Post-Disco Outfit Deluxe, with their new record, more disco songs about love. We're going to close out the show with the new Tune Yards record, I Can Feel You Creep Into My Private Life. Ooh, spooky. I don't know.
Get out of there. Get out of my private life. Get out of here.
This is episode 23 of the Anthony and Todd Show, an episode we would like to call
Is it pronounced GIFMAFIA or GIFMAFIA?
JPEGMAFIA is an experimental / industrial hip-hop artist out of Baltimore, Maryland. Over the last couple years, he's been releasing track after track, mixtape, couple projects, and from what I've heard, it's never really been a really concise thing. I've been blown away by a couple of these tracks, like his collaborative track with Freaky, I Might Vote for Donald Trump, which is a very tongue-in-cheek, very goofy joke of a track that's about actually voting for Donald Trump just so to say you could do it, and all these weird, stupid political references, like JPEGMAFIA says he wants to call up Chris Christie in a similar manner that Kanye West said he wanted to call up Donald Trump. Just a lot of these references throughout the entire track. It's super catchy at the same time. It's super funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously. You get that it's a joke. You get that it's really tongue-in-cheek. It's not supposed to blow you away. It's not a mind-bending, politically charged track. The track Baby I'm Bleeding, which he dropped late last year, that actually made it onto my honorable mentions list for top song. I really liked that track. I thought it was a nice blend of like experimental hip-hop. It had some shades of industrial, not like huge shades, but it had some also shades of trap, and it really was a nice blend of everything, putting everything together. I love the vocal sample that played throughout the track. I love how he uses I love how he switches the slow out constantly through the track. I like how the track kind of builds up, starts off really slowly, the instrumental builds up, and then you get into it and it's like JPEGMAFIA just punching you in the face, like he's ready to go. It's a slow build up that actually has something that's worth building up to, and it's a really exciting track. I loved his wordplay through it, like Never Go Blonde like Kanye, or Come Over Here Like I Work for Midway. Just like all these references throughout the entire track. I think he was actually a really good lyricist, and I thought it was like his jokes, his punchlines really like worked supremely well. Like the track is very quotable, gets stuck in your head a lot. Not only does it have punchy production, these punchy lyrics, but it just gets ingrained into your head, and that's why I like the track so much as I did. And I was really excited going into this project, but I was also kind of nervous because before I was never really blown away by any of JPEGMAFIA's other work besides some of the singles. But finally listening to it, Veteran is 40 minutes long, it's 19 tracks, and I honestly have to say, it's a mess. But I think, this is going to sound like the most fucking pretentious thing ever, and people are probably going to hate me for it, but I think as a mess, it makes the album unpredictable and exciting to the point where you do not know what to expect. There's so many different elements, whether it's from elements of experimental hip-hop, elements of industrial hip-hop, elements of trap music, just things like auto-tune and these weird vocal samples that play up through the entire project that are completely unexpectable. You get shades of like Death Grips, you get shades of like clipping, like industrial artists or industrial hip-hop / experimental hip-hop artists. You get shades of their work, shades of their style of production that kind of like show up on this project. Again, it is a mess, but I think as a mess, it doesn't really replicate the same ideas that much, but it also surprises you because it goes down so many routes. It's constantly throwing new ideas on you. If something doesn't really land, it's not around for long. It doesn't overstay its presence. And because there's 19 tracks, and the average track's about 2 minutes, nothing really stays for that long, which is good. It's a good thing and a bad thing, I feel like, because some of the moments could be a little bit longer. Moments like Real and I Can't Fucking Wait Until Morrissey Dies, I feel like should have been a little bit longer. Overall, this is just a well-crafted mess. And I hate to call it that, but it is a mess. It's a mess. It's a really messy project. Even like when comparing it to like artists that are like in the similar vein as JPEGMAFIA, like again going to Death Grips. Death Grips isn't this big of a mess, I would feel like. Death Grips are throwing a lot at you, and it's surprising, but like I'm not like thrown off by it, I would say, as I was with this project. I wasn't as surprised, let's say, as listening to Bottomless Pit as I was with this, because this is just constantly changing on what it is. It works for it really well. And I think I rambled on for a little bit. What did you think of this album, Trevor? Because I was a bit nervous, because this is not like, I like the weird music, you like your particular style of music, like you've never been into Death Grips, you've never been into like anything like that, so I was really nervous going to this project because I really liked it. I didn't think you're gonna like it as much as me, so I was kind of nervous. What do you think of this project?
Vincent straight up told me that he didn't think I would like this album, but I came in and told him that I loved it, and it's true. I really do think this album is really great. It's honestly just amazing. It blew me away in a lot of the same ways that Vincent talked about the ever-changing style of the album. Nothing is stagnant in the album. Every instrumental, every sample, every hook is consistently changing over the course of the album, over the course of a set of tracks, over the course of just even a track. I mean, if you listen to the same beat or the same like sample loop over 10 seconds, it'll change like 3 times. You just never know what's going to happen next. And it's always keeping you on your toes. One of my favorite tracks is Real. I mean, this, I think, is just the beginning of really good creative production throughout the whole album. You come into Veteran and it starts with that sound, like everybody knows that sound of like, you know what I'm talking about?
It's okay.
Everybody knows that sound, and I recognized it, and I was like, this is the, that's just like this universal sound that people make.
Okay, so do you know what the sample actually is?
It's it's ODB's Going Down. From 1995.
Which I've heard that track before, but I'm like, okay, so this sounds a bit familiar, but like going into it, it's just not like a sample. Like this like instrumental hasn't been done. Like he didn't like rip it. Well, he ripped it. He ripped that sound effect, but like that wasn't a part of like ODB's production. Like he took just a noise that ODB made at the beginning of the track, and like turned it
into his own production.
Like
that's so creative.
But like here's the thing, it like comes at a moment. It's the second track on the album. The album starts off with 1539 North Calvert. That's like a more trap centered track. It has shades of experimental and stuff like that, but like it's straight up a trap song. Like there's nothing more to it. It's a great, well crafted track, but then you get into Real, you're just completely transported away. Like
this is the moment where I realized that this album was not just a trap album, and that JPEGMAFIA was not just some random trap artist. Like this is the beginning of a really, really creatively produced and just consistently changing album. I don't think that North Calver does it justice as an opening track. Not saying I would change it in any way, but Real just shows what JPEGMAFIA is capable of, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The lyrics are fun, they're ridiculous, and it's all over like the smallest part of. You could have sampled anything from ODB. He's so he's so legendary in the hip hop community, but he sampled just a sound that he made and turned it into his own production. Yeah. That's ridiculously creative. Baby I'm Bleeding, you talked about that a little bit. That's personally my favorite track on the album. I enjoy this one to death. Really fun, funny lyrics, very clever production. Like, it's only 2 notes, but he makes it in such a way that it's constantly changing. It never gets tiring. It never, like, becomes an annoyance. It's always a really creative accompaniment to his lyrics, I think.
Also in Baby I'm Bleeding, I love how JPEGMAFIA, his little ad-libs, little liners that he has throughout the entire project. He samples Edge's theme song, WWE Hall of Famer Edge's.
That's his
theme
tagline.
song. Yeah, his tagline, the "You Think You Know Me," which is part of his theme music, which I just love. And we'll get into the I have like a whole entire section of like wrestling references that we're gonna talk about later, because like I'm a wrestling nerd. And like JPEGMAFIA made wrestling like cool on this project, and I love it because like wrestling is like something that's like the nerdiest thing, and it's always portrayed in like hip hop and like with these little lines, but like constantly on this project he's coming through with these wrestling lines, and they're just so great. And we'll talk about it later. I don't want to get into that right now. Just the little, even like the little other taglines with like "damn Peggy" and stuff like that play throughout the entire project, I think really provide this weird atmosphere.
They're so funny. I like how they call him Peggy. It's just so funny. He's just a really funny, punchy guy. And it's funny to see him treat himself in that same manner, too. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but he can still deliver, like, really hard-hitting lyrics. Baby I'm Bleeding's, like, it's just this really violent, like, stream of consciousness. In contrast to something like Macaulay Culkin, another favorite track, really mellow, really good use of like boom bap drums and just one guitar. And then I'm a complete sucker for 90s references, and that's all it was just a stream of 90s references.
I think, let me read this line, I wrote it down. I hit your mama with Conker's Bad Fur Day. Golden Eye, hit 'em up, perfect dark for the job, so I zip 'em up. Like, it's those 3 lines.
N64 games.
No, they're all rare games, aren't they?
They all.
No, Conker's is rare.
Conker's is rare.
Perfect Dark's rare.
I don't know if
GoldenEye's rare, I think. Yeah, so like he's coming through, like, not only like I mentioned the wrestling references earlier, and we'll get into that later, but like he's constantly coming through on this album, which is some of the most witty wordplay I've heard like not all year, but like over the past like decade, I would say. Just some of these like really, really witty lines, and his delivery is like perfect. It's intense, like you take him seriously, like these dumb lines. It's almost like an Amir Van effect, where you can say the dumbest thing ever and it comes off as serious. Over like these really weird beats, he's able to find his own place over them. He's able to take control. Like on Rainbow Six, the weird vocal sample that plays through the entire track, which I can only describe as some kid crying over PSN chat. That's literally what it sounds like to me. It's not only is the beat able to develop, he's able to take control of it. You're not really paying attention to the strange instrumental background as you're paying attention to Peggy and what he has to say and his like dominance over the track. And I think that's a really strong quality to this project. What else did you like about this project?
I mentioned Macaulay Culkin. I think that the small like musical interludes and extended outros kind of go hand in hand with the kind of build up that we were talking about. I think that's just a really cool like transition. It made the whole album, while it is very choppy, while it is very unpredictable, it still felt like a very cohesive piece thanks to that, you know? Build-ups were done correctly, fade-outs were done correctly, interludes were done correctly. Things like Damn or Germs have these extended outros, or Damn as actually just a music, or it's just a
Damn's very similar to Clipping.
Yeah.
Would you say? Because it gave me like the theatrics that Clipping provides, with also this like spacey atmospheric vibe that they produce.
Oh, for sure. I think that the song titles add so much to this project. Like, they're just so bizarre. Things like My Thoughts on NeoGaf Dying, Whole Foods. I cannot wait until Morrissey dies. Like, ridiculous stuff. I mean, even things like Panic Emoji or Rainbow Six or Curb Stomp. Like, what does he have to do with like anything? You know, they're just random titles, and they talk about tons of random different things. It's just a lot of fun to like see what he comes up with. These are like things that I would name tracks that have like nothing to do with, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They have nothing to do with like what's actually going on. And there might be one line in the entire track that has something to do with the title.
Yeah.
But like
For majority of it doesn't.
it has nothing to do with
like
it.
what does my thoughts on Neo Gaff dying actually have to say
No,
about
he's literally
Neo
just
Dive
I don't
dying?
care. I don't care.
Yeah, it's like
over and over.
like he just doesn't give a fuck about the segment. He doesn't give a fuck about the subject. Like it doesn't fucking matter to him.
No.
He just doesn't give a fuck. Like I think that's really exciting. In all the different places he works in on this project, they all pan out really well. Regardless if he even on tracks like Thug Tears and DD Form 214, which do take a more trap style, I think they plan out really, really well. Especially in DD Form 214 with the Bobby Rush, the female vocal feature that's on it. I think it plays out really, really well, and I think it's able to match the emotional intensity that the track has to say. DD Form 214 is the one where you leave the military, right?
Yeah, he is a veteran.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that. He's a Air Force veteran or just Army veteran? I forget. But the form, it's more talking about his emotional state after leaving the Army. His kind of like depression and his like anxiety. That kind of comes more on Panic Emoji. But again, going back to all the different styles he's able to play on this project, some more industrial, some more experimental, some more trap sounding. I feel like he's able to play in all these different like little playgrounds, and all of them work out really well. I also like what JPEGMAFIA has to say on so many different topics. Whether it's he's bringing up kind of his military past and how he's kind of coping with it on tracks like Panic Emoji and DD Form 214, or whether he's talking about gentrification like he did on Williamsburg, or just race-related issues on Rock and Roll It's Dead. And I can't fucking wait until Morrissey dies. Like, I think he has a lot to say, like a lot of different topics to cover as well, which is really nice. He's a lot to say. Covers a lot of different topics. There's not really a unifying topic throughout this entire project, but I don't think it needed one, because it is this giant mess. I think it actually helps that he's covering all of these kind of like almost related topics in a sense. They're all very political. He has really hard stances on them, and I think that's kind of the linear thread that narratively plays out through the entire project.
We were joking a little bit about it earlier, about Death Grips, but I almost see JPEGMAFIA as, and I've only listened to very minimal Death Grips, so I'm not a huge expert on the subject, but I almost think that Veteran is like Death Grips Light or Death Grips Junior, kind of almost like an intro step into the world of industrial hip-hop, because, at least to me, you even said that I was not somebody that typically enjoys this kind of music, and some of that statement I think is true, because I don't listen to Death Grips. I think that this is like a good introduction into industrial hip hop. I think it was accessible. Would you say?
I think I at times, yes. Like, I think starting off with 1539 North Culvert,
it almost tricks you. It traps you.
And I would even say Real is accessible in its weird
I think
way.
It's accessible.
I would say Baby I'm Bleeding is accessible, but like tracks like Damn and
that's
like,
just an instrumental.
Even it's a really spacey interlude that has vocal performance. Like Damn, Germs, like Rainbow Six, 1488
sure.
are just like they're not accessible.
They're not accessible, but they're later in the album, so I think it's almost like a gauntlet, kind of. If you could survive this, then you can survive the next one, and if you can survive the next one, you can survive the one after that. I think that it almost like traps you into it, and now by the end, I want to listen to more JPEGMAFIA, and maybe I'll listen to Death Grips.
I don't really see this as being that accessible. I don't know. I feel like times it definitely is. It kind of reminds me a lot of Atrocity Exhibition.
Yeah.
Especially Real. Real gives you, like, why are you rapping over this? This is just, like, too weird to rap over. Like, how are you managing to do this? Like, it's amazing. But, like, he's just switching up everything, I feel like. It's just so many different styles, again. I hate to, like, be a broken record at this point, but, like, literally there's just so much to this project. There's so many different styles he's occupying that it's just crazy. Actually, what did I not like about this project? I have two major complaints. First is the track Liberal Anthem, which features Freaky, who I talked about earlier, who was part of the I Might Vote for Donald Trump. He also did a collaborative project with JPEG. And literally the track's like an interlude. It's like a minute, like 30. And it's trying to be this tongue-in-cheek experience, but Freaky isn't providing a good enough flow to make what he's saying like super dumb. Like what I mean about that is he's not making his like stupidity. He's not finding a way to creatively be stupid. I know that sounds dumb, but he's just coming off as an idiot. He's not coming off as like a self-aware idiot. Like he literally just sounds like he's a fucking clueless moron. Like I know that he's trying to come up with this bigger political statement. It's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, it's supposed to be goofy, but he just comes off as an idiot. Like there's nothing more to it. Like if he had like the first 4 lines, it's kind of catchy, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, you gotta go, but then he just doesn't have anything. Like he doesn't have any rhymes. He just stops rhyming, he stops caring, and it makes whatever statement he's trying to make or any political satire, anything that he's trying to do, just a fucking joke, and it's pointless. And I just hate it. Like it could have been this like really goofy tongue-in-cheek moment, similar to like I Might Vote for Donald Trump. Even if it was a minute and 20, I feel like I could have occupied this little goofy space and been a stronger moment on that album. But like it really isn't. Again, it's only a minute 20, doesn't take up that much space, and a majority of the track is like an instrumental build up to it. But I just think it could have been a little bit more than what it was. On Panic Emoji, I think the start of JPEGMAFIA's second verse, he has a similar problem. He just doesn't rhyme for a minute. He just forgets his flows, and he just doesn't like try. It feels like the second half he actually like picks up and it goes back to like what he was doing before, but for like a moment on this really political track about him dealing with panic attacks and anxiety, he almost just stops giving a fuck, and it kind of takes you out of the narrative that he's trying to build, out of this atmospheric moment, and you lose him for a second, and it kind of puts a dampering on the entire track. But other than that, I don't really have that many other problems with this album. Like those are 2 nitpicks I have throughout the entire project. I think JPEGMAFIA again comes through with some of this like best production and some of the funniest and like most witty rhymes you'll hear all year. And I think it's time to the moment where I go through all the professional wrestling references. I think now's the moment. Okay, so started off Socket 2 Up, like Mankind. Obviously I'm making reference to Mick Foley. This one's my favorite. On Thug Tears, he makes reference to Rich Swann. He says, I'm kind of passive like Rich Swann. Rich Swann is a wrestler in the Cruiserweight division that recently, I depending on when he wrote this line, this is a reference to the domestic violence problem that Rich Swann had with his wife. And I'm kind of passive, so basically bringing an ironic stance to something. He's not passive, he's an aggressor. I think I don't know if that was the true intention to the track, but like I think if it was written after the Rich Swann thing, which I hope it was, it's a nice little dark humor, I guess. Like a bait and switch. I'll whip your ass like Sasha Banks. Matt Hardy, my gun, you getting broken, and it samples Matt Hardy's like little yes. I thought that was great. This one's my favorite. On Macaulay Culkin, he says, Black man, white fam, I feel like Jason Jordan. Which, Jason Jordan, in storyline, is the son of Call me Kurt Angle, Call me Kurt Angle, Call me Kurt Angle. I just love that. Also on the Macaulay Culkin, he says, turn Stone Cold and Simple Steve. And then finally, the closing track, Curb Stomp, is, at least on the hook all has to do with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is a wrestler whose finisher is the curb stomp. So he says, I'm rolling, I'm Rollin, I'm Rollins, and I'll curb stomp my opponents. Like, I think that's a really, really catchy hook, really aggressive, but it's really witty at the same time. He's making a reference to this wrestler, how he curb stomps his opponents. I think that's great. And yeah, I just loved all the little wrestling references on there. I know it's like a appointment segment I just did, but like I think it provides a lot of humor to this kind of like dark project in a sense. Even some of these like jokes that are like a lot darker than they appear, like the Rich Swan line, I think provide a lot of depth to this project. He is able to be goofy at the same time, he's not taking himself too serious. But it provides a lot of depth to what he's saying. I think that's really nice. Oh, and before I forget, the Mike Seatown reference on 1539 North Calvert is the best thing ever, making reference to Dead End Hip Hop's Mike Seatown. I want a bitch with long hair, Mike Seatown. I think that's great. I love that line so much. It's amazing. I like when people reference music reviewers, like how Brockhampton referenced Maryland. Anthony Fantano. I don't know. I think that's great. Shout out to Mike Seatown. Shout out to Dead End Hip Hop. In conclusion, I think this album is a really, really well crafted mess, and I don't really have any more to say about it. I think the production is just so out there. It's so strange. It takes from so many different elements, whether it be industrial, experimental hip hop, or trap music. I think he's just pulling from so many different artists, pulling from so many different just styles, that it all comes together to be this unpredictable mess where you don't know how it's going to play out. You're driving down the road, but the road's constantly making turns, and you're swiveling around trying to stay on the road, but like it's just so hard to stay on. There's just so many twists and curves, and you don't know where you're going, and I think it's a really unpredictable, just beautiful disaster. I think that's the way I want to put it. I really like what JPEGMAFIA is doing on this. And so far this year, this is my favorite record. I really like this record. I just love a lot of the aggressive moments. I love how he's able to be aggressive. He's also able to be tongue-in-cheek. He's able to not take himself too seriously, but also have a lot of hard stances on very political subject matter. He's able to explore so much in so many different ways. And it's fantastic. I can't say enough about this project. I don't think I can explain all what makes this project so great. I think this record's utterly fantastic. In the end, I'm going to give it a 9. I really like it. I think it's good. And I hope JPEGMAFIA follows with this, and maybe even down the road, like having a more cohesive style, working with that, or continuing just to take from so many different elements. I feel like if either route, which that way down, if he goes more down the rabbit hole, or if he kind of brings it back up and makes something more concise, I feel like either way he's going to come out with something really exciting. So I'm really excited for his future. I think this record's utterly fantastic. I can't say enough about it. Listen to Real right away. Like, that's like one of the best songs of the year. Baby I'm Bleeding, I Can't Fucking Wait Until Morrissey Dies, 1488, Curb Stomp, Rainbow Six. Like, there's so many great tracks on this. I can't say enough. It's a great record. Check it out.
I think I'm going to have to agree with you and also give it a 9. I'm really surprised that I like this album as much as I did. And I guess in the same way that Jeff Rosenstock surprised me with his album. I really enjoyed that one and hadn't enjoyed his stuff in the past. But this album was just so good. I mean, the only nitpicks I can make about it, Liberty Anthem, and then sometimes the production is just like, uses like squeaky noises, and it's just unpleasant on the ears that I can't like.
But that's like
that's just part of what he does, you know. I can't complain about his production because it's 99 times out of 100, you know. Those squeaky sounds are just something I have to deal with, I guess, if I want to get even Macaulay Culkin, one of my favorite tracks, has the squeaky sounds in the background. Like, it's just something I have to deal with.
It's only on Macaulay Culkin and Whole Foods.
Whole Foods, yeah.
It's like those two tracks. But
there are other like
on Whole Foods, it's like built into the rhythm. Macaulay Culkin's kind of random. But I think
Thug
it works.
Tears are a little pitter patter. I don't really like that. That kind of messes with me too. I don't know, just like very. See, I'm nitpicking here. It doesn't matter, you know. I really, really liked this album. Like you said, I want to see what JPEGMAFIA comes out with in the future. I want to see if maybe he can, have a cohesive style and tell more of a story. But also, whatever he did on this album, like whatever kind of just garbage he threw together and was like, here we go, an album, it turned out really, really well. If you want to do that again, go ahead.
Yeah, like
I loved it.
I think he described this as a interview with Noisy, or I forget who he did an interview with.
I don't remember.
I forget. I read it, but he basically came out and described this album was trash. Like he thought this was
He
garbage.
also called it a country album. So
Yeehaw.
yeehaw. Word on the street say yeehaw. But I really, really liked this album. I can't praise it enough. This is my highest ranked album of the year so far. It's only January. It doesn't really mean anything, but so far this is it. This is fantastic.
I love this record. It surprised the hell out of me. Like, out of all the records that we're reviewing today, I was expecting to like this one the least, not because I thought he couldn't do it, but I just felt like
He did it.
he like somehow like blew me away. Like, you get into 1539 North Culvert, and you're like, okay, I don't know what to expect. Then Real hits. Then you get into Thug Tears, and you're confused. Like, wait, we're going through so many styles. You get into Damn, you're even more confused. Baby, I'm Bleeding. My Thoughts on Neogaf Dying. You're just like, what is this mess? Like, this is completely strange. He's going down so many routes. There's so many different styles. They're all short, but at the same time, they have so much to say. It's well crafted. And I will ramble on about it for the next 40 years if you let me. So I'm just going to end it there. I think it's a good place to end. Definitely check it out. Tracks you should definitely check out. Real, Damn, Baby I'm Bleeding, Whole Foods, Macaulay Culkin. Can't fucking wait till Morrissey dies. Rainbow
Awesome
Six,
stuff.
1488. Crip Stomp. That's it. The end of the review. Leaving it there. Ready to talk about some porches?
Let's do it.
You ready to talk about my house porch?
Yeah.
Ready to talk about my backyard porch?
Not a backyard porch.
I have a cement porch. Does that count?
Yeah.
I have a cement plat.
Okay, that's it.
Going to bed. Canceled.
This is the end. Porches is a synth pop project based out of Pleasantville, New York. It's headed up by Aaron Main, and really, they've only released 2 albums in the past. Slow Dance in the Cosmos in 2013 and then Pool in 2016. This is Main's third studio album, The House. It's about a house. Let's talk to it.
Yeah, let's talk to this. How are you doing, house? Good. I am a house. Yeah, I'm not a huge... I don't know. Are you a super fan of porches? Have you been into them before?
No.
Like, I've heard, like, tracks. I've been interested by tracks before. Like, their track off their first record, Fling on the Flirt, I really like that track. Mm-hmm. Like, I've heard some of the previous work.
I've heard good songs. I've never heard a Porch album. Album.
And I've heard some of the singles going to this excited me, so I want to, like, dive in head first to see what Porches really had to offer on this project. As I thought a lot of the synth pop they were making was different than a lot of the tracks I've heard from them previously, and I was interested to hear how it would play out over the course of the album. And I gotta say, as an album, it's concise. It's like concise to the point where it's almost the same song. I hate to say Travis Scott and Quavo, but this is a Honcho Jack scenario.
Yes.
I hate to say it, but with this particular album, The House, I think looking at this album, it's more about how Aaron Main kind of dealing with anxiety, kind of not leaving the house that much. It's a really self-reflective, introspective piece that kind of looks at his anxiety and several other things on this album, but a lot of the songwriting is the same. I feel like the songwriting and the production throughout this project, while it may be concise, while narratively and it may all flow together, it gets to the point where I feel like I'm listening to the same track over and over again. I think there are moments that surprise me here and there, and those are the ones that have like the features to it, like the track Understanding, and also Sandy/Alex G is on the intro track providing backup vocals. I think there's these little breaks, but like I don't know what they add. Like, the features on this project don't make that much sense to me. They don't really add anything. They're these, like, random, like, while the production may be fluid and fit well together, I don't think they have anything to say. And since this is such a introspective project, I want to hear from Aaron's perspective. And since it's not, it takes you out. And it confuses me. I think this project is really well crafted. I think the production is really well crafted. I think the songwriting is, while it may be more of the same, I think it is well crafted. Since it is subject matter wise covering a lot of the same topics, he's not lyrically writing the same song. He isn't copying and pasting words, I would say. Like, I felt like Travis Scott and Quavo did. Like how they're talking about the same experiences over and over again. This is a little bit different. Now, what did you think about this project, Trevor?
Personally, like I said, I've never listened to Porches before, but I almost felt that it was kind of a letdown because I listened to the first track, Leave the House. I really liked it. I listened to Find Me. It's a little longer. I think, actually, Find Me is tied for the longest track on the album, and it's only 3:47 or 3:48. But, I really liked the sound of these first two tracks. Synth pop done well, or deeper, I guess. I almost compared it to the Chainsmokers, but I feel like I can't.
I don't think it's basic enough.
No, it's not. It's better. It's better than your run-of-the-mill synth pop that you hear on the radio or you hear in the clubs or wherever. But after Find Me, it just isn't that anymore. Like, at all.
It's not as exciting.
No,
it kind of operates in the
it's
same.
boring. It loses those elements that I enjoyed in the first two tracks. I mean, Understanding right after that shortest, or one of the shortest songs on the album, goes into another one of the longest, and then from there, every single song just goes by in the blink of an eye. It goes by so quickly, and it kind of loses something. I don't understand, like, where the breakdown occurs, because how could you have two, what I consider to be really interesting sonically tracks, and then go straight to just a lot of boring material? Some of these I feel like borrow from other sounds or other artists. For example, Now the Water, I think, almost sounds like a spot-on discount Justin Timberlake. I think that's like kind of the style that he borrows from, or the vocal style. And then I would have to say my least favorite track, By My Side, sounds like Justin Timberlake instrumentals, but he's singing like Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, specifically where can my baby be? Like, just awful sounding vocals over the top of this like completely off the wall pop like instrumental, and it's not done in a good way. I feel like a lot of the tracks are almost just letdowns, whether it be musically, whether it be stylistically, whether it be lyrically. They just never live up to the goodness of the first two tracks, in my opinion.
I don't feel like this project. It could have been something way more.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying it's bad in any sense. Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, but it's also a very pleasant listen.
It's a very pleasant listen.
It's easy on the ears.
Easy on the ears. Did not put me to sleep like some pop records earlier this year have. It's a finished project. There's well thought out ideas, even though they cover a lot of the similar topics. It is a really introspective project. There's a lot of heart being put into the production. There's a lot of heart being put into the lyricism. It's just, beyond that, it's just not fully fledged out. A lot of passion was put into this, but at the end of the day, narratively, it doesn't diverge that much. And I wish it was almost like super open. Like, I wish it was super just raw, super just almost like upfront about everything. Like, it didn't need like lyricism, or like, I'm not gonna say abstract lyricism, but it didn't need like kind of reflexive lyricism. It could have just been direct to the point, and I feel like it would have got the job done a little bit better, and would have made a lot of these stories feel like experiences instead of just like him talking about similar subjects that kind of all sound the same and flow together, and would have made up for some similar production. Leave the House, Find Me are two great tracks that kind of set up this narrative, and it kind of tells the same narrative after that point. We don't really get more into the story. I wish almost like Aaron crafted himself as a character, and like this is now just like what I thought the album should have been. So like this is where the review is going, because I literally don't have anything else to say, because I think this album is very just basic, or not basic, but it's really...
No, I would definitely say it's basic.
And what we mean basic, we don't mean like basic like bitch. We mean like just like very simple.
Run of the mill, simple.
I think it's... I wish he would really craft a narrative. Like, as someone who deals with agoraphobia and anxiety like myself, I related to Leave the House and Find Me. I related to these introspective moments of anxiety and fear. And I didn't get that on the rest of the album, and it kind of brought like a downer. I wish he was a lot more open, and I know that's hard to be open about these subjects, but I wasn't getting enough like just his sense of being, if that makes sense. I got this like really artistic impression of him, but I didn't get who he is. I don't know him. I just know it's almost like he drew a painting of himself and framed that up. Like, I can look at that, but I don't know the man behind it. Like, the painting isn't doing a really good job. It's doing a good job of hiding, like, flaws, but it's not really artistically showing me the pain you went through on this project. And that's something I was really interested to hear. And not to say you have to be a tortured artist or anything like that. No, but just, like, paint your experiences in a way. But you can be honest. You don't have to artistically frame your lyrics. Like, Shoes Forget. All it does is artistically frame its lyrics, but it's also covering so many different things, and it's not just about Jamie Stewart. It's about so many different other things. With this, it's only about him. And I feel like you need to be a little bit more honest. Or not honest, because I feel like he's honest on this project, and to say he isn't is wrong, but I feel like he just really isn't open. And not to say he really isn't open, but like, he could maybe explain himself more. You can be more raw. You can be more upfront about everything. You can be more simple, even simpler than this. Like, I feel like would have worked in the album's favor. Now, would have that made up for like the album's similar production? I don't know, but I think better lyricism on top of the more simpler production would have made these tracks feel like
It would have
different.
helped some, I think. There's only so far that lyricism can go when your production is not living up to its fullest potential, but I definitely think that it'll help. If you have weak lyrics and you have weak production, then you're not going to have as good of an album as if you have weak production and good lyrics.
Yeah, but there's not too much other I can say outside that. Like, I do, even when the production is lackluster, I think it's fine. Does a good job, but like it doesn't really differ from track to track. There needed to be more diversity in production. There needed to be more diversity in lyricism, because he's covering a lot of the same topics, but like the tracks don't seem different at all.
Right.
That's my complaint. Those are my complaints of this album. Like, I don't really have anything else to say about that. I think a lot of passion was put into this, a lot of heart, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the most well-crafted piece of machinery or well-crafted album. It's like building a bicycle, but the tires are flat. Like, it's not really gonna do the job. I know it's a terrible metaphor. That's like a goddamn awful metaphor, but I think it kind of describes what this project is in a weird sense. Like, all the basic things are there. They just need to be tweaked at this point. Lyricism needs to be fixed. Production needs to be switched up. And then you would have had like a good project, I feel. At the end of the day, I don't think this project's that bad. It's a finished project. A lot of heart and soul was put into it. I really can't complain other than that. I think it's a 6.5. I think he does it. I think it does an okay job, but it's a pleasant listen. Didn't put me to sleep. I liked it, but like a lot of these tracks just kind of sound the same. That's the biggest flaw.
I'll probably have to give it a 6 then. Like I said, pleasant listen, but I think I get hung up on what it could have been rather than what it actually is.
Are you ready for a deluxe meat lovers pizza?
I've never been more ready.
Okay, Deluxe is a Los Angeles post-disco group. I just like the sound of that post-disco.
Absolutely.
I've heard some of their tracks before. I really like their track. Oh man, the future. It's just a really strange.
It's so funny.
Strange look on what they think the future is. It combines elements of spoken word and these really disco-inspired production, along with just the great vocals that are on the hook. I just love it. I think the spoken word in that track is fantastic. I can't emphasize enough. It's just really catchy, but at the same time really dumb, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's really fun. After I heard that track last year. It's been out for a while, but I just heard of it last year. I was interested to see where the band would go, because I thought that the style could be really played with a lot. I thought there was a lot of fun you could have with it, and I was excited because they're signed to Innovative Leisure, who also have Bad Bad Not Good, so like I knew the label actually had potential to it too, so I was interested to see where they go with that. They dropped a single last year, $875, which a track I feel like I ended up snubbing on my year-end list. I didn't put it on like an honorable mention, but like the more I listen to that track, I feel like I should have, because it is really catchy. It's a fun little single that more heavily takes this disco influence and plays with it. They ended up following that up with a track they released a couple weeks ago called Keyboards 'Cause We're Black and White. It's just a really catchy disco track. Like, I can't even say anything more than that. It's just so catchy. It's such an earworm. It gets stuck in your head. There's just so many elements that are at play. It's so fun. Like, there's just the music video that accompanies it is utterly fantastic, and like so far it's like one of my favorites of the year. I think there's just a lot of fun to that track, and I was really excited to see where this project would go in the future. I ended up finding out that they're releasing an album, more disco songs about love, and I was really excited to listen to it and see how this would plan out. How with this post-disco style, with these elements of spoken word, these captivating lyrical performances, this fun lyricism, all play out together in one style. And I was pleasantly surprised when this album even took more of a disco turn to it. Like, this is like heavily like 70s, 80s disco inspired, which is utterly fantastic. Like, what more do you expect from a post-disco group? Like, I think it at times is really funky, really fun, really bright, and I think the production on this is the stronger part, I would say, to this album. It's a really strong backbone to this entire project, I feel like. But like, where to start off with this project? What did you think about this project?
I think that this was a fun album to listen to. Some of the tracks were a bit longer, and I'm not so much into longer tracks, but on this album I didn't mind it at all. I think that personally, and maybe it comes as a bit of a shock to you, but I am kind of a fan of bands like the Bee Gees or Earth, Wind and Fire, that kind of thing. Like, I like that disco sound. To me, it's funky, a lot of fun. Yeah. That funky sound is a lot of fun to me, and I really enjoyed hearing, I guess, a modern day post disco take on the genre. Some of these tracks I think are just really creative sounding, like being able to take, because essentially what disco did was just be able to take like one funky riff and be able to, kind of play it throughout the rest of the song, and it was still fun to listen to and still just as funky as the first time you heard it. Songs like $875 or Cause for Concern or Writing Music for Money to Write More Music, I think are fun, creative tracks that make good use of that. I mean, I enjoy their disco sound. I enjoy the harmonies put into this, all these sorts of vocal tricks, for lack of a better term. And I actually really enjoy the vocal work and just flat out singing on this album. I think it's very pleasant to listen to. Keyboards Because We're Black and White is for sure my favorite song on the album. Just like I know it's yours, but I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. It's really catchy, and I think that it never like overstays its welcome, I guess.
I like it's Keyboards Because We're Black and White is 6 minutes, but it doesn't feel like 6 minutes. Like the more I listen to that track, like it doesn't feel like
it doesn't feel like 6 minutes.
It's like one of those moments where
track
like
on the album, but it's creative enough to like bring you through the whole thing. It's the way that you get caught up in an album and don't realize how long you've been listening.
Yeah, I like to call it the Kamasi Washington effect, where like or Igloo's effect, even better. But like you lose time. Like I don't know where I am when I'm listening to this. I like space out. Like not to say that this track is like spacey or anything like that, but I just kind of like lose track. I get like caught up in it. I feel like it's a really
It's a lot of
powerful
fun.
track, talking about these two different people, how they feel like their keyboards are two polar opposites. And I feel like the music video plays really well into that.
Because we're black and white.
Yeah, it's an earworm. It gets
It's
stuck in your head.
infectious.
You will say that for like the rest of your life. You can't escape it. It's one of the catchiest tracks you'll probably hear all year, and we're already in January. I don't know why.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
I also really enjoy Cause for Concern. I think that's a really cool sounding track too. Personally, myself.
$875 does the same thing, talking about... I think the way I inferred the track is it's about how he's getting a new apartment, and that's causing people to finally notice that he's switching up his life a bit. That's the
Yeah.
way I kind of viewed it. I don't know if that's actually what it's about. I haven't really found anything to say otherwise. But that's how I kind of heard the track. Just... It operates on so many different levels, expands all the vocal, like the production's the same for the entire like 6 minutes, but the vocal performances is what separate moments of the track, and I feel like that's a really unique way of setting up your track, how you separate just everything up. Like you may have like elements of production fall in and fall out, but like the vocal performances are what separate individual peaks.
It's almost like movements in one symphony, or the way I describe 3rd of May by Fleet Foxes came out last year. I almost describe that whole song as like an epic in 2 parts. It's got vastly different production, vastly different vocal style, but it's one song in 2 parts, and it sounds really neat that way. $875 is the same way. I mean, it's like different movements of one single song.
Other moments I really liked on this project, these are some of the things that I think about. Really gives me that 70s feel, like
Yeah.
70s disco feel. Like this is
Saturday Night Fever.
this is I
stuff
feel
here.
like almost like a perfection of this style, like because it gives me, yeah, like you said, Saturday Night Fever, like kind of Bee Gees. I was thinking like, I don't know, this is not even post disco, but like weirdly enough it like reminds me of like Styx. If you get
Very,
one,
like prog rock.
yeah,
I
kind of.
definitely see that.
It's weird. Like it's a really weird, funky, fun track. I love Music Snob too. Music Snob is like the closest to why.
I didn't like Music Snob.
Music Snob is the closest to Oh Man the Future, because it's a more spoken word track. This weirdo's talking about how he might run for president. He's talking about switching up his life. He says he's only like 25 years old.
I'm only 25 years old.
King Cruel's on the track.
I have
Depression. That's actually kind of similar. I think we actually made a King Cruel analogy that actually fits for once. But King Cruel's on the track. And talking about running for president. Guys just want to have pleasure, which is the weird hook that's on it. Talking about spank me, suck me in, spit me out. Just all these like really weird elements, lyrically, vocally, production-wise. Just so much fun having with this like post-disco, 80s, 70s, heavily disco-inspired, indie rock sound, I guess. That's the best way to describe it. There's so much fun to be had on this. What did I not like? Smarter, Harder, Darker, and writing music for money to write more music kind of replicate some of these same ideas. The songwriting's different. I will give it that. Some of the vocal styles are the same. I feel like Smarter, Harder, Darker takes heavily influence. It basically replicates some of the production and some of the vocal stylings from $875. And writing music for money to write more music takes some of the chords and some of the vocal stylings of these are some of the things I think about. Like it's like they're almost like copy and pasting parts of tracks onto like two later tracks, and that kind of threw me off. And I feel like those moments overall are weaker. Writing music for money to write more music with the feature from Sal P. I feel like Sal P's part should just not be there. He doesn't really have anything to say. I think the lead vocals on that track were really strong, and then when you add this feature, it doesn't really make any. It doesn't like it's unneeded. Like it's just filler. And I feel like since some of the production on some of the vocal performances are similar to already established tracks, I think it kind of just was unneeded fat that could have been easily cut. I think it's one of the tracks that doesn't really deserve its length. It's 5 minutes long. Could have easily been like 2. Some other things I didn't like Stratosphere Girl. I think it just didn't fit. I think production wise it fit, but I feel like Mark Stewart's feature, it reminded me a lot of like tracks I didn't like of Gorilla's last project, where just the feature would come in and just like switch up the entire game. It wasn't needed. It really wasn't. And I feel like his performance is okay. Production's great. Production matches hella well with him. But it's just like, I don't really care. Like, you're like an unestablished character that shows up on like the 9th track. Like, I don't really... And your performance is not like great enough that it's like, oh shit, it's okay. Like, you do a good job. But like, it's not mind-blowing enough where I feel like you can support the entire track by yourself. But on the second half of Music Snob, I already mentioned the first half, how it's this guy talking about he's going to run for president, how I'm going to make changes to my life. I'm going to switch up my life. I have depression. But on the second half, there's this, what I can only assume as this French woman talking. And I wish I knew what it was saying. I couldn't find like a translation out there on like the Genius or anything like that. But like, it's this random element that shows up at the end, and I don't know why it's needed. And that's it. Those are my major complaints with this album. I think this album is relatively harmless. It's a lot of fun to be had, but at the same time, I think it kind of loses focus at moments when it really shouldn't. I think a lot of these tracks end with just a fade out really quickly. And that kind of bothers me because I like tracks that kind of flow into each other. And if you have a fade out, make it really long. Like a longer fade out. Like don't short fade out. Like spread it out. Made it seem like you have some depth to go out with. It feels like they just end when they run out of stuff to say.
I definitely have to agree. I think maybe if a couple of these tracks were cut or combined, I guess, like you said, writing music for money to write more music and Smarter, Harder, Darker, if you combine those two tracks, it would have taken care of some of it, because they're essentially the same thing, restating the same like ideas. But I think like where this album hits
really hard. Yeah,
$875, excellent. Keyboards Because We're Black and White, excellent. Cause for Concern, excellent. Like, I just think that a lot of these tracks are really creative, and I would definitely have to say that Deluxe is perfecting the art of disco in a time where nobody cares about disco. It's just really cool to see.
It's fun exploring a genre that's kind of almost been dead, and I think that since they're the only ones that are doing it currently in the moment, it gives them like this edge. That's like, we're all the only ones doing this shit currently.
Well, they don't even need an edge over anybody else because they don't have any competition.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It gives them the edge of like other like indie rock artists or other like, I would say pop artists. They have an edge over them because we're doing something that like no one else is doing.
Correct.
In the end, what do I feel about this album? I feel like there's a lot of fun that is on this album, but they just replicate ideas at times. They stop when they kind of run out of things to say. Things just kind of end really quickly, but there's really, really catchy moments. Like, these are some of the things that I think about has been stuck in my head all day. Keyboards Because We're Black and White will be stuck in my head for like the next 20 years. $875. a music snob with "I'm going to switch up my life," even though it is King Cruel on the vocals, even though it is really stupid.
I have depression.
I have depression. Even though it's these dumb vocals, but I feel like it does play out really well in a weird part. Yeah, I think this is a 7.5. I really like it. I think it does a good job of experimenting with something that's been dead for years and putting a new spin on it.
I think I'll have to agree with you. 7.5 seems like a pretty fair rating for just a really fun album. It was a lot of fun, and I hope that they can perfect their craft even more to where they don't have to reuse ideas. Release Saturday Night Fever 2, and then we'll talk.
So, now, how about this? Saturday Night Fever 4.
Oh,
shit.
You just have to skip everything else.
You ready to talk about... Oh, wait, no. Wait, I think I have an intro for this.
Bang, 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 oh, I never looked at my...
You took it out of my head. I was going to say that.
There is gonna be the word. Bang, 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 oh. Tune Yards are a musical project consisting of Meryl Garbus and Nate Brenner on bass.
It's mostly her project.
It's mostly Meryl Garbus, but I know Nate helps a lot with production and bass, mostly bass. But wow, Tune Yards are definitely a very polarizing, sonically different project. I'm just different from anything I've ever heard before. Quite honestly, it's bizarre. It's fun. It's all about just making awful noises and creating them into catchy songs. And when we were talking about JPEGMAFIA, I feel like I talked about how I wasn't into this kind of music or like really weird experimental music.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, like Tune Yards is one of my favorite projects out there right now. They make so many good songs and so many good statements. Who Kill is such a great album from 2011. I mean, hits like My Country or Gangsta or Business are making like political statements or like very important social statements over the top of like drum machine fill and just like random noises.
And it's annoying, but it's catchy.
It's
It's like
yes.
it's like this backward approach where you listen to this, like you listen to Gangster, and you're like, this is complete trash. Like this is so goddamn annoying. But then you like. It finds a way, it sneaks a way into your heart. Like it takes this like backdoor approach to like your heart. It like sneaks its way you're in there, and like you love the track. You like begin to find this weird admiration for the track, for being so catchy, for being so absurd. It's a really absurd lyrical way of songwriting, and I think she did. Meryl did an interview with NPR. And I think to summarize her words or to paraphrase her is for this album, she wanted to take a bunch of dumb ideas or a bunch of processes and lyrically put them together in an album. And I think that's such like a good approach, just taking these ideas, not like what Weezer did with Pacific Daydream, just taking just like these riffs or these projects. No, she wanted to take these like lyrical strange moments and like try to have a lyrical impact with them.
Not to go back to JPEGMAFIA, but I think that Peggy does a very similar thing using ODB's sample in Real, where it's just one single mouth sound that he creates his entire production for the track out of, is exactly what Meryl Garbus is doing, but has done it for longer. Like, she will make just these weird squawking noises and loop them over a drum machine and then play ukulele over the top of it or whatever percussion she wants to over the top of it, and all of a sudden you have a song. Like, that's how Tune Yards works.
Putting so many elements together and putting in elements in, taking elements out, seeing what works, basically testing the water to see how you can create a song. I think that's a process that I like exploring with. Even with like filmmaking, I think it's a lot of that process is the most fun you can have is putting things together and seeing how they play out, experimenting.
I am absolutely positive that this whole album, or really any Tune Yards song, is written by Meryl Garbus waking up in the morning, messing around on a drum machine, messing around with the ukulele, and screaming and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. And that's a very valid approach to songwriting and music making in general, is throwing every idea you come up with against the wall and seeing what sticks, and then coming up with piecing things together to create a cohesive project. So naturally, of course, obviously I have nothing bad to say about Tune Yards, but I was very excited for their newest album, I Can Feel You Creep Into My Private Life.
Get out of there. Get out of
my life, boy, get out of there.
I Can Feel You Creep Into My Private Life was headed up by 3 different singles. Look at Your Hands was the first one. Quite honestly, not my favorite track. I was a little scared once I heard that.
I thought, first time I heard it, I thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And like, we've listened to some dumb music before, but I thought it was just so stupid and annoying. But as time went on, it like just sunk into me. Like, it just snuck its way into my head, and like, I can't get it out of my head. It's like, na 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 na, look at your hand. It's like, it's engraved in my brain at this point. Like, it's so catchy, it's so out there, and it's like, it may not production wise be one of their better tracks, but it works. Like, I feel like the counter to that, Heart Attack, which kind of follows the same method. I don't think it's as annoying, but I feel like the production is able to progress further, unlike Look at Your Hands wasn't. I feel like the strings being added, it gives it a grander feel towards the end. You feel like there's this build up to something magnificent. The hook is kind of annoying. Like any of Tune Yard's music, I would say, is kind of annoying, but it is really poppy. It's really catchy. Feel like a heart attack. Heart attack.
Like a heart attack.
That was actually pretty good. I'm proud of you for that one. But it's really catchy.
It's just a fun song. Honestly, it's really catchy and poppy and just very fun. Their second single, ABC 123, I think kind of restored hope for the project for me, because as I said, Look at Your Hands scared me quite a bit. It didn't sound like anything from Tune Yards in the past. It had been 4 years since the release of Nicky Knack, their last album, and now Look at Your Hands came out, and I was nervous, but ABC 123 came out, and it sounded very much so like their previous work, and I thought, this album can't be so bad.
Again, finding, like, it has a dumb hook to it, just ABC 123, like, that's all it is. Like, there's nothing more to that.
Oh,
like,
the rest of the chorus is literally just naming off all the letters.
Like, there's nothing more to it, but again, it's really catchy, and it narratively finds a way to make that work into, like, an entire track. Like, I think that's really clever. So, what does this new album provide us? It's 12 tracks, it's about 40-something minutes, and I think it's a really, really well-produced pop album. I think Meryl and everyone does a good job of producing a well-packaged album. There are some moments I feel like are weaker, but I don't really have, like, huge problems with them, I would say. And I feel like as time goes on, I'll grow to love them. Not because I feel like I need to force myself to listen to this album or anything like that, but I feel like I didn't, like, Look at Your Hands when it first came out, but it snuck its way into my heart. Like, I appreciate it for being the dumb, like, annoying thing that it is now. And I kind of have that problem with, like, one of the closing tracks, Private Life, where I feel it is kind of messy, but I feel like as time goes on, I'll love it more, because I think there's parts of it that I do like. And I feel like this album is a really, really, it's going back to experimenting, to seeing what it works, taking all these different ideas and trying to turn them into songs. And I think it's really clever at doing that.
Absolutely. I think that in the same way I was worried about Look at Your Hands when I first heard it, I was a little worried when I first started this album. Heart Attack is obviously like, it's a big track to bring you in, a really good intro. But as soon as we leapt to Coast, it brought the whole mood of the album down. And I was like, well, I'm a little worried. I'm a little skeptical here. I don't know if this is going to work. I was scared that it was not going to be that good. We moved to ABC 123. Just as I remember it, still a really fun pop track. But when we finally got into new material, Now As Then, I think I realized that there was hope for it.
Yeah.
Now As Then was really bizarre. Like, it was like super pretentious, like where she's talking like, I'm exceptional, I'm an exception, I am the exception, that's for me,
Yeah, just like
I'm contradicting.
It doesn't even seem like it's on pace. It's
No,
like she's taking
it's-
like all these. She's word splicing herself. Like
Yeah,
weirdly
absolutely.
enough.
It's like it's like the most pretentious thing she could possibly come up with. And I read about it later, and just as I expected, political statement. It's all about like how white people confront racism, where they talk about themselves like, I am the good white self.
Yeah.
You know, I am the Donald Trump.
I am the Donald Trump.
Yeah. But
I am depression.
I am depression. But like, it's just all sorts of like, just very pretentious sounding. And I was like, this is the tune yards that I am used to. Is poking fun at people, poking a sleeping bear, making political statements right under people's noses. That is what Meryl Garbus does best. And this whole track of Now As Then completely embodies that. That's when I realized that this album was back on track with hope. Honesty, I think, is super like simple and super, pretty much all the words are like honesty, 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 gone.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. It still works.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's bizarre
It's
sounding.
one of the tracks that I find annoying currently in the moment, but there's qualities to it. Like I like, especially like the ending where she kind of takes this like, not hypnotist approach, but she, trying to relax her.
It's like a meditation.
Meditation, that's the word I was looking for. Where like this guided meditation where she's trying to put you through, just like breathe in through your nose, or I forget what she says, but like almost get this guided meditation. I feel like it actually adds this like element to the track, this soothing element to this really hectic track, to this hectic album, I would say. And I think it provides a little bit of depth, which is nice.
I definitely think so. I could actually compare it to Benjamin Clementine's By the Ports of Europe,
By the ports
because it's literally just the same lyrics over and over, but it ends up being like, in my opinion, a catchy track. After that comes one of my other favorite tracks on the album, slower and definitely more politically charged. It's Colonizer, where she talks and says, I use my white woman's voice to tell stories and travels, or of travels with African men. And it's talking about how she uses her white woman voice to do things that other races can't, or to say statements that other people can't.
Really powerful track.
It's very powerful.
Very honest, I would say.
I think that, honestly, I think the vocals are annoying. I think that the production is annoying, but I think that the message that it is trying to convey to its audience is a very powerful message. Not to mention, it ends with that word spliced, Quelle Chris style, I can feel you creep into my private life.
I can
and it's
feel
like,
you creep into my private. No, I was trying to get being you is. I can feel you creep into my private life.
That's
not it. But...
It's like very eerie and haunting. You know, it like gets under your skin a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Like I didn't like it when I heard it. It made me uncomfortable, and I think a lot of the stuff that Tune Yards puts out is designed to make you uncomfortable. Colonizer made me uncomfortable, and I think that if it makes other people uncomfortable too, and makes you think about your life and the way you conduct it, then it's done its job. Meryl has done her job. Following Colonizer, obviously, Look at Your Hands. We've talked about that a little bit. And here comes one of the shining moments on
I think
the album.
I would have to say this may be my favorite track on the album. This or Heart Attack, for sure.
Home is absolutely beautiful. It's
such like a breath of fresh air. It slows the album down a bit. It like, I think when I was going through the Genius, like someone quoted like the NPR interview, Meryl kind of described it as this is when the album needed to take a break. Like going at Look at Your Hands, like that really fast paced, like hectic track to something more smoothing, more calm, and I feel like the most normal, I would hate to say, but the most beautiful track on the album for sure.
It's absolutely beautiful. Meryl just has this uncanny ability to know when to slow things down. Because so far, the album was just this train, like, breakneck ride of being uncomfortable and confronting, like, different political, like, aspects, or confronting things like institutionalized racism and things. And look at your hands, it's just a huge, like, mess. And it slowed down right at the
When it
right
needed
at the
to.
best,
Right after this really goofy moment.
right when it needed to, and it's absolutely beautiful. The dissonance on "She's a Fool, Fool, Fool," the harmonies that lead up to that, and then just this straining dissonance. It's
Beautiful.
beautiful and eerie at the same time. Just like what Tune Yards do best, it makes you uncomfortable. And that's exactly what it does, and it's exactly what it's meant to do. I love the track Home. I think that it's absolutely gorgeous. I didn't know Meryl could sing like that, because most of the time she's squawking or singing in more of a brighter, more forward tone. But this sounds downright operatic, something that you could find in like a church, and it would resonate for 10 seconds afterward. It would just be gorgeous. I really enjoyed this track. After that is Hammer, another track that I enjoyed, about he won't get off my back, he won't get off my back.
For some reason, I don't know why. I think it's just because it's Hammer, but it weirdly reminded me of Maxwell Silver Hammer. I think it's just because it references... It doesn't reference, but I think it's just because of the word hammer. I don't know why I think that. But I just imagine like Donald Trump on her back, constantly beating her with a hammer. I don't know why I think that. But the song is about Donald Trump. It's about this kind of oppression in a sense. And I think that plays out dominantly through the track.
It's very 80s inspired from a musical, standpoint. But definitely not one of my favorite tracks on the album. But it's still good, I think, personally. Who Are You is after that.
Who are you? And I'm
so sorry.
I'm sorry about that. I'm honestly sorry about that. I don't know where that came from.
This is more of a, honestly, I think this is more of an interlude, I guess.
I feel like it kind of has something to say about like the beauty of the entire world, but also I think it's kind of making stances to global warming and climate change, but do not quote me on that, because I don't know if that's true.
It reminds me almost like You Are Dust in the Universe.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Which usually I don't really like those kinds of tracks or messages, because
Father
they almost
John
seem...
Misty.
I mean, you can deliver it in tons of different ways, and obviously I don't think that this track is pretentious.
Yeah.
I think Father John Misty delivers a similar message in a very pretentious way. You can deliver it in a pretentious way. You can deliver it in a very, like, fake, deep way. You can deliver it in a not, like, a very thoughtful way. There's lots of different ways you can convey this message. I think that's maybe part of the reason I don't like it, is because, to me, every time I hear it, it comes off as very fake philosophical or pretentious, or trying to like put yourself to sleep so you start thinking about things so your head spins, just like trying to get way deep in your thoughts and wonder what the point of the universe is, and never come up with any conclusion. Typically I don't really like songs or messages like this, so Who Are You, again, is not one of my favorite songs on the album, but that doesn't mean it's a bad song. I still think it's got really...
it goes like the perfect amount of depth. Like I like Father John Misty's pure comedy, and like you think it's pretentious. You think it's pretentious, but I think it goes like really far with it. This is just like it's a 3-minute track. Like it doesn't.
It's not the entire album.
Like it doesn't. Yeah, this is like one lyrical moment, and it doesn't. It's just this really simple, introspective moment, or like we're just dust in the universe, or something like that. Like I think it works for it. And there's also another really slower moment, slows down the album before the final 2 tracks.
And then I think Private Life is...
my least favorite. It's my personal least favorite.
Yeah. I don't think that it says a whole lot. Not to say that every single, I guess, track has to say
anything.
a lot. Yeah, or say anything. But I guess for the title track, I would have thought that it would have said more things. I thought it would have
Meant something
meant
more?
something more. I don't want to. I just want to hear your voice. I don't want to. I don't want to hear my voice. You know. I would have thought it could have gone deeper. I guess as the title track, or have meant a little something else. But to me, I think that this track is also eerie, and just as eerie as the first time we heard the title, I Can Feel You Creeping in My Private Life.
And I think that eeriness
At
really
the end of
plays into
Colonizer.
this like almost like sense of paranoia that
Yeah.
not that's present on throughout the entire album, I would say, but like I can feel you creeping in my private life. So it's very like freaky, paranoid filled experience, paranoid filled sentence, like, and having a sense of paranoia of someone entering your private life. This eeriness is needed, I feel like, and it adds a little bit. I feel like it's almost the eeriness is needed, and I think it fits perfectly on the track. It's production wise and lyrically, I think this track's annoying, but I think again, like in 2 months, I'll love it. Like there's aspects again, the eeriness of this track. I think this how this track's designed is really unique and strange and out there, but like I just didn't care for it. But like I'm again, in 2 months I might love it. Like I think it's just the roughest moment on this entire project, and it's the hardest moment to listen to, but it's also at the end of the album, and I think it perfectly. And it's not the closing track. If this was the closing track, I probably would have had a little bit more problems with it. But like,
Yeah, I would have
I
been a
think
little more disappointed.
Yeah.
But it kind of, I mean, there's still another track afterward. I do know that Private Life was inspired by Paul Simon's Graceland, which is all about Paul Simon kind of trying to reinvent his sound and work with a bunch of like South African musicians. So I can kind of see, I guess, where that inspiration comes like into this track. I think that that's really interesting how Meryl can use her musical influences in the way that she did on this track. Also, I'd like to throw out that Graceland contains the classic Paul Simon song "You Can Call Me Al."
And then the album closes off with "Free." And I think that's just a nice uplifting statement, or not uplifting, but kind of these politically charged statements. Quit telling me I'm free. Like, we like to think we live in this like perfect society, like we have freedom, but how much freedom do we actually have? Stop telling us we're free when we're not really, when you're manipulating us. I think that's just a nice statement, and it brings up some of the eeriness in a sense of Private Life, almost a sense of paranoia, and I think it works on the final track, and I think it kind of leaves you with something to think about.
No, it most definitely does. In an album that tackles a lot of, I mean, this album tackles a lot of more, I think, race issues or gender issues, different minority groups, or I guess individual groups of people's problems, with, like I said, tracks like Colonizer or Now Is Then, tackling huge issues like that. This is a freeing track, I think. It doesn't mean that the problems have been overcome. It doesn't mean that everything is fixed. It doesn't mean that everything is fantastic and right with the world. But I think that it means a lot to just get up and yell, "I'm free," and to just belt that out. It's kind of a state of mind kind of thing, to tell yourself that you're free, to just scream out that you are free. I think it does something for your own psyche. It does something for your own character and well-being, and it makes you want to rise up. If you personalize an issue, you're going to be more apt to work against it, and to stand up and yell that you are free, I think is a battle cry.
Yeah, this album is, I don't know, I was surprised how much, like, the more I listen to it, the more I like it. And I'm not forcing, like, I'm not saying that in the way I'm like, I'm forcing myself to like this album. No, I think it's acquired taste. You have to get, like, the feel of it
Two Guards
first.
are very much so an acquired taste. Like, I've been listening to them for a while and showed Vincent a couple tracks, and he didn't like them at first. Quite honestly, he thought they were super annoying and screechy, and I just kept playing them, and then I think he acquired a taste. I'm not saying you should force yourself to like it, because if you think that these tracks are unbearable and you can't even make it through the track, don't listen to it because not every band is for every person.
But it will get stuck in your head.
It will get stuck
whether
in
you
your
like
head.
it or not. Look at your hands. Heart attack.
The thing is, if it gets stuck in your head and you overcome the urge to listen to it, Tune Yards are not for you. But if you give in and you find yourself listening to the song more and more, I think that you will enjoy what Tune Yards have to offer.
I think, I don't know. It is an acquired taste, but, like, I don't think this project was that hard to listen to.
No.
Like, we've listened to some harder shit. Like, Benjamin Clementine, obviously, hard project to sit through. King Cruel, hard project to sit through. Like, we've said, John Bapp, Jesus Christ, John Bapp, Eminem. Like, there's some hard shit we've had to listen to, like, in the past, like, year. I will never forgive those people for releasing those. Actually, no. Benjamin Clementine's album was good. Parts of King Cruel were okay. John Bapp's a nice dude. And I hope Eminem can suckle my nuts. He's a has-been. But this album's not that hard. Like, Heart Attack, easy track to listen to. Coast to Coast, not that hard. ABC 123, not that hard to listen to. Like, Look at Your Hands, really annoying. But, like, this album's annoying instead of difficult. Like, I'm not trying to, like, comprehend what they mean with all these different structures. It's more of like, oh, they're just goofing around, but they actually have something to say behind this, like, forefront. And I think that's what makes this album great. Yeah, the more I listen to this album, the more I like it. And Heart Attack, Home are, like, two of my favorite songs this year. And I think as time goes on, I'll love those tracks even more than I do now. I think this album's 8.5. I really like it. And I don't know. I'm excited to see more of Tune Yards in the future.
I'm going to give it an 8.75.
Ooh, big boy.
309. No, I love Tune Yards. I have been a fan for a while, and I am always super excited to see what Meryl will release next. She really blew me away on this one. I quite enjoyed it. At a time that I wasn't so sure about it. You know, I was kind of worried about what was going to be coming out here, but it ended up being something that I could really enjoy. So definitely check it out.
And we're going to leave it at that. Just remember to look at your hands, your hands. Yeah, that wraps it up for this week's episode of Anthony and Touchdown. This is a long episode. Let me check. Was this a long episode? Not horrible. Kind of long. We've had longer. We've had like 4-hour episodes before. Never again. But yeah, I really like this episode. This has been a great week. Like we started out 2018 with like an okay week, like an all right week. And then we had like a bad week last week. But this week was really, really good. Like, I can't emphasize enough. Listen to JPEG Mafia. Listen to Tune Yards. Listen to Deluxe. Hey, even listen to portions of Porches. I feel like portions of that album are worth it. But like, yeah, just check out all these projects. I think they all have something to offer for everyone. And you may even like Porches more than us, or you may even like Deluxe more than us. But I feel like every one of these projects at least has something to offer. And I'm glad I listened to all these projects. Even Porches. Like, even though we're not the biggest fans of that album, it did have moments that excited me. Mm-hmm. So this has been a good week. I really like it. So what is next week? Next week we're reviewing The Migos Culture 2, which apparently rips off David Bowie's album art.
No, dude, they're just superstars. You got the wrong guy.
They literally just stole Black Star's album art.
No, it's Superstars.
Well, you can superly suck my ass. That'll teach you. Honestly, in all honesty, I hate to say this, that album's probably gonna be bad. If Hunter Jack was any inclusion of it,
give it a chance here.
I'll give it a chance. But
it's got probably 90 Cardi B features.
I think I would probably enjoy the Cardi B features, probably the majority of Migos. I don't know. I feel like I want
it could be good.
I want 90 Cardi B features and then 90 Mac DeMarco samples. That's what I want. So we're reviewing Migos Culture 2. We're also going to be reviewing Ghostface Killah and Apollo Brown, the Brown Tape. And then we may do some other things. There's some other things we have up in the air. We may talk about the new Cadence Weapon record. We may talk about the new Sir record. Like, there's things up in the air that we want to talk about.
We're just very busy.
We're just busy.
Everybody's been releasing music, like, one after the. Nobody's saving anything for later in the year.
Yeah,
and so like everything just hit at once.
Like I don't know, like, but I feel like we're still, like, January's been a packed month so far.
Absolutely.
Like, let's look at what we have. Like, last year, you had trouble like filling out your list. We're in like January. You already have like 3 records that are.
Yeah.
It's like we may have.
I've
to
already
do,
got like 3 that
like,
will fill out my mid-year list.
Like this has been such a good year, and like look what we have up. Like next month, MGMT, car seat headrest. Like there's Black Milk has a project coming out. Dabry or whatever his name is has a project coming out. In March, you have Jack White has a project.
Nathaniel
Ratcliffe. Just like so many other, and like that's just March. Like, and March is not even filled yet.
That's the 3rd month.
Jesus, like, chill the fuck out, 2018. Like, do you think 2018 is gonna be the best year for music? Because if it continues at this pattern, I think it's gonna be pretty good.
I almost think that everybody that released a good album in 2016 is gonna come out with an album in 2018, and so we're just gonna add more to the list already. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, and like even artists who haven't been around for a while, like MGMT's dropping something. They haven't dropped something in like 5 years. Vampire Weekend are supposedly supposed to be dropping something like this. They haven't released an album in goddamn forever. Like, Frank Ocean, who dropped something in 2016, is going to be dropping something this year. Even maybe it's rumored that Donald Glover may drop something.
Jesus is dropping something.
Kanye, yeah, TurboGrafx 16,
Oh,
16
man,
albums.
Ready?
Jesus, this is going to be a fucking packed year. Bus Drivers dropping something. Like, there's just so much. Like,
It's Private Temple House.
Private Temple House.
Young Man's got a new album.
Okay, if Young Man drops it, like, will we review it?
Yes.
Okay. I kind of want
Jerry
to.
Seinfeld.
Oh my god, I'm so hyped. This has like been an excellent week. I'm really glad we did this episode, and I'm glad you guys joined us. This has been a really fun experience. I love listening to music, talking to you guys about it. JPEGMAFIA, I can't emphasize enough. That was such a surprise. Tune Yards was such a surprise. This has been a great week. Okay, so till next time, guys, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iTunes, and Spotify. If you have a question, there's a link in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube and Facebook, you can send us a question. If not, you can like tweet us, YouTube comment, like anything else, email us.
Send letters.
Send letters.
Throw a rock through my house.
Carrier pigeon. Attack Mitchell.
Smoke signals.
Apache helicopter. You could tweet at Offset and tell him he's a bitch, but also have like a question attached to that.
Dear Migos.
You suck. But here's a question for the Anthony and Todd show. Like, forward us it, I guess. I don't know. That was a dumb joke. Our intro song is No Sleep. Our outro song's Cold Reply. They're both done by our big friend DJ Quest.
He's a big friend.
There's links to the songs in the description. They'll take you to SoundCloud. No SoundCloud jokes in 2018. We're leaving that in 2017 with the Zans. We're going to leave Tide Pods in 2018.
It is 2018.
No, we're gonna like because we gotta let the Tide.
Them.
We gotta leave.
No, they're dead.
No, we gotta let them play out first. We gotta let them take some victory. Like they're gonna kill some people. Tide Pods. But like I feel like the people they kill are completely justified and they don't deserve to be alive. That was dark.
All right, next time.
Vincent went on a fucking fascist remark saying people who eat Tide Pods kind of deserve to die. But yeah, let it kill Youngling, or not. Let it kill Little Pump first.
No.
I'm kidding. I wish the best for Little Pump. His new single with Carnage is actually really good.
Yeah, it's called Walmart Parking Lot.
I don't think that's what it's called.
Carnage.
I think I don't know. We'll talk about that later. But like, I think he may actually have a good project this year without Little Yachty. So that may be interesting. Yeah, I just don't want to end this episode. I'm just having so much fun. This has been a great episode, probably one of my favorites we've ever done. I want to thank Trevor for joining me. I want to thank you guys for listening, and this has been episode 23 of the Anthony and Todd Show, an episode we'd like to call.
Is it pronounced GIF Mafia or GIF Mafia?
Till next time, guys. See ya.
See you later.